All right. Hey, everybody. Nick Livingston from Honeit. I'm excited about this week's Honeit guest, Harris Menon, the CEO of Infinity CXC. Harris and I have been talking, and we've been working with them through Honeit, but he's a thought leader. Harris runs a really interesting, innovative recruiting firm. It's global, it's remote, and his recruiters are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with technology. Harris Menon, welcome to the Honeit Podcast.
Thank you so much, Nick. Pleasure to be here.
Well, great. Well, I know I've enjoyed our conversations, and you've kind of shared, your experience and journey to get into recruitment. I think you have a really interesting story. I was hoping you could share with the audience, how did you get into recruitment? How did you start your own firm? And, how did your kind of background in sales and experience with high volume hiring kind of spark that interest?
Sure. So I never in my life growing up ever assumed I would be in the recruitment space, candidly. I loved sales. I pushed my initial time learning management and all that to get into sales. I was in sales for about 18 years before I got into recruitment. And as you know, recruitment, I've run this company, Infinity CXC, now for 14 years. We recently celebrated our 14th anniversary. But the pivot happened very purposefully. I saw a problem that I wanted to solve. But before I get to the problem, so this is my journey. I got into sales. I was in India those days. Lucky to get the exposure, the right place, right time. This was in the late 90s, 98, 99. That company said, hey, you seem to be talking good English, so, go to US. So I was shipped off to the US in about 2000 or so. And over the next several years, found myself closing some interesting technology deals. That led from one company to the other. At some point, I got interested in the world of what they call business process outsourcing, which was the operations side, the non-technology, but operations side, the finance and accounting, the HR outsourcing, the analytics, that kind of stuff. And I'm now talking about 2010, 7, 8, or going to 10. And that gave me some very interesting insights into how corporates function, large Fortune 500s function. Eventually, my last employment was with one of India's largest technology companies called Wipro. Some might call it Vipro. And I was lucky to run a $100+ million business unit of theirs, specifically running the insurance BPO practice, as they call it. Now, keep in mind, for a $10 billion company, $100 million was a small piece. But it gave me some very interesting insights into how the US company works and where are the opportunities. One of the issues that I came across time and again was not just that recruiters were calling me to hire me for other opportunities, and I didn't quite enjoy some of those conversations. That was always back of my mind, right? You get pinged. Everyone gets pinged for opportunities. But I noticed that despite the fact that I was with Wipro, one of India's leading technology companies, we were still having a very hard time finding the right talent for strategic roles that my boss was looking for. And I rationalized that it is simple. The recruitment engine at Wipro, and is a large team, by the way, in the hundreds overseas and all put together, they don't understand the business side of the house. They are recruiters. They've been trained to be recruiters. Their KPIs are recruitment, speed, volume, just accuracy, things like that. Whereas if you want to place, let's say, a head of analytics, you need to understand why analytics, what is it doing, et cetera, right? You need to understand the business side. And a light bulb went off in my mind in 2011. And I told my then boss, who I was very close to, I told him, listen, I know you want to hire these people and you can't find them. I know where they are, but I can't do everything at the same time. So I want to step outside Wipro, try to learn recruitment, and see if I can come back as a vendor. Right? After a little bit of up and down, he agreed to the idea. And so that's exactly how it began. I left Wipro almost over a weekend, began to think through. I listened to a lot of podcasts on what was available those days. So I owe gratitude to a lot of these leaders of recruitment who give insights on YouTube and where have you picked them up. But I began to analyze what were the mistakes of classic recruitment, right? And I started recreating what should be the process for good recruitment. And literally that's how the whole thing began, Nick. And here we are 14 years later. Yes, I do have a global team. We are spread across US, Canada, India, and Philippines. And we support a number of small, medium, Fortune 500 clients across technology and business process talent.
Well, what an interesting story. I love that, you secured your first, well, you didn't even secure your first client, right? You kind of said, hey, I want to take this risk to come back, but you didn't really even have a guaranteed client when you took the leap, but you had a good relationship and maybe the blessing to take that leap. So kudos to you for taking the leap. And you also then mentioned you saw a few things that what wasn't right and then maybe what was right. Maybe you could unpack that a little bit, I think. Where did you see those opportunities of how you could change the game or improve the process?
So I came up with a thought process that is probably counter to a lot of people. And this is actually a longer conversation. I'm just going to give you one of those things.
Sure.
Around that time, I remember Jack Ma from Alibaba had made a statement about how his priority is not the shareholder, but his employees.
Hmm.
Right? It was a very interesting moment. I remember distinctly him talking about it, because generally growing up, every public limited company that I've worked for will say we work for the shareholder.
You have to say that, right?
You have to say that. I understand it. But philosophically, where are you putting your time and effort? And I began to look at recruitment, and I said, all the recruiters are working for the client. Like they want to satisfy the client. I get it. Client is important. They're going to be the beneficiary. They're the ones who with the dollars end of the day. But there is somebody else who you're moving from company A to company B. How do we start showing value to the candidate? How do we make the candidate feel that he is making the right move? And at what point of the interaction does our role as a recruiter stop? Like that began to really cross my mind. So that, for example, would be one of those big gaps I see in the industry to this day. You know, it's so common for me to hear a candidate telling me, "You're a recruiter." And I'm saying, I know I'm a recruiter. I wish I could call myself something else, but I really value the candidate side of it. In fact, what does Infinity CXC stand for? X, as we all today have come to learn, X is representative of experience. And the either C is the candidate and the client. So when you have good experience between a candidate and a client, the result is infinity. And that's how the whole name came about. Right. So
I'm glad you shared that. That's a good insight. So you're the bridge. I mean, you're the bridge, or you're not forgetting about either side, right?
Yes, I look at both sides. I can't just say I'm working for the client. I'm working for the candidate too. And the moment you say that, your process will shift. The way you treat the candidate will shift. The time and effort you spend to keep the candidate engaged and happy will shift. And that to me was a big issue with the recruitment industry. Like when I was at Wipro, for example, I get called by recruiters, hey, I'm looking for a job. Company X is looking to hire a sales leader. Would you be interested? If you say no, they drop you like a ton of lead. Like they don't want to talk to you. And that was, I'm qualified. Mr. Recruiter, you don't understand that you may not hire me today for a client, but I could be very valuable. If you look at me as total value, total lifetime value, if you want to use that terminology, you know, I can help. Maybe over a 30-year career, I could make 5 jumps. That's a huge value to a recruiter. Why do you just forget about me? Right? So these are some of the concepts that I used when I built this business.
It makes a lot of sense. And everybody talks about candidate experience, but I don't think they're talking about it in the way that you're talking about it, right? It's a phrase that everybody likes to use, but then to your point, the time, the attention, the rapport, the relationship that you create with the candidate, that you're right, that could pay itself forward, or 3 to 4 placements over the career if you treat them well and you're their first call when they start to think about making a move, right? Yeah. So, that's a lot. We like to talk a lot about the human touch or high touch recruitment at Honeit, you know what I mean, versus low volume, staffing or whatnot, where it's just about speed and not about quality. I think we see a lot of that in the United States. There seems to be a real distinction between wow, I found a nurse that's breathing, that has a pulse and a certification. We'll just place her with sight unseen. And some hospitals willing to accept that, which is terrifying,
Yeah.
versus, more of a 360 view at a potential candidate, to your point, someone who can be strategic, knows the industry, knows the pain or problem they're solving, can articulate it well, can solve. So that's more of a well-rounded placement than someone solving, say, a specific skill or with a particular,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll give you an incident that happened this morning. It occurred to me this morning as I was talking to a client and this was a new prospect that just became a client this morning. I realized that in 2005, right, 2005, 2006, New Year night, I was invited to a party at a colleague's house. I was working those days for another company. I was at a colleague's house, and I met a bunch of new people there who I did not know before, because I had just joined that company like 3-4 weeks prior to that. It was my boss's house. And 20 years later, today, 4 of those people I met up at the party, 4 of them are CEOs of companies. One of them manages about $1.5 billion. One is, and the remaining 3 are between $200 and $600 million company sizes, right? So the power of staying in touch and valuing people, we fail to recognize. It's almost like compounding, like the concept of compounding. You forget, I did not know this. If I wish they were my best friends. I still know them, but I have not treated them with the kind of effort I would have if I knew that 20 years later, between the 4 of them, they're going to be running $2.5 billion worth of business. Right? That is the strategic thinking that I'm trying to impart on my team.
Fantastic. That brings us to the topic that you can't ignore, and I think we're talking just about that. It's rapport, relationships, high touch, human interaction versus automation or AI. Mm-hmm. Where does your team fall on that spectrum? What are your, I guess maybe before that, what are your personal thoughts on AI, and then maybe we can dig into maybe how your team is either leveraging it or how far is too far with some of the tools or automation we're seeing.
So I'm sort of torn. I think everyone is sitting on the fence because I see how fast it is moving, and we are unable to figure out where will this lead. But there are 2 paths. So the obvious path for most people seems to be, let's worry about what is happening and all the noise we hear around us. And maybe that's the honest part. I don't know. But the moment we go down that road, it's a very slippery slope. You're going to worry more than you can actually be effective. I have chosen to believe that, yes, AI is obviously here. It's going to morph into something far bigger than what we see today. But I like to also believe that human nature is going to be core. I don't see humans, generally speaking, again, I find it odd that we're going to be talking in the language of humans and non-humans, but that's the reality. And every place that I've been able to help a candidate find a better job, it is not because I just told them, hey, there's something there, go have a look. There's a lot of human involvement, right? Today we've begun to call it human in the chain. It is not human in the chain. It is empathy, respect, all that in the chain. And so the way I see it is, the faster some company, a recruitment firm, learns to leverage AI tools, the better it is for their success. But at the same time, it is also easy for a recruitment team to go overboard and overdo with AI. And nobody knows the answer, what is the right middle ground. So I have a problem, for example. I have recently seen that now every time I ask for a report from my team or something, or you have a call and it comes to me in a beautiful transcript with images of rockets and clapping hands and all that. I know it's obviously done by AI. The problem is how much of that AI is understood by my team. Otherwise, if you're doing it purely taking a voice, converting into transcript and saying, I've done my work, which took us a fair bit of time in the past. It is making us more productive on the face of it. But if you don't recall what you have written, we are actually losing productivity.
Mm.
So today I'm telling my team to step back a little bit. There are certain AI tools that we must use. They're incredible. I'm sort of I call myself the chief AI tester in the company. I'm always, every weekend, I'm trying out new tools. I just love it because you just don't know which combination is the secret sauce. And I've begun to see some interesting ways to leverage it. But to the broader point, I think AI in roles that the candidate is not really keen about a human touch, meaning he is just looking for an incremental shift in his career. For those roles where you can tag a profile with an opportunity, we want someone with Python skills, or we have 4 years Python, therefore let's move. Those kind of roles, I think, are going to be heavily influenced by AI. But if you have a client who tells you, I want a sales guy, for example, but I want him to know this, and I want him to understand that industry, and I want him to not be a bull in a china shop kind of a guy because our culture is like this instead, then there's no choice. You have to be talking.
Do you think that might also vary on the type of the role itself? I mean, historically, there was full-time placements in recruitment, there was contractors in recruitment, and in that case, maybe automation could help connect a contractor to a job to help with a 3 to 6 month assignment, or like a Fiverr or a short-term project, versus someone you are going to be investing, say, hiring full-time with benefits, and you're hoping for a 3 to 4 to 5 year relationship with someone. Do you see it varying there as well, or is it more just, hey, we need one particular skill versus more of someone who can, solve well-rounded problems and help with other strategy?
The way I look at it, Nick, is I think if you're talking about leadership talent or leadership minus one talent, we are still talking about traditional recruitment. I don't think AI is going to eat that space too soon. And I don't think it's easy for everyone to operate over there. It seems to be easy, but it's a very complicated. You're playing with emotions, you're playing with ego. There's a lot to unpack in that space. If I were to look at it futuristically, I think I've not seen a platform doing this, but I truly think that it's only a matter of time that we are going to have companies that will say, here are 100 roles that we have for you, Mr. Candidate, today. You wake up in the morning, you log into the site, you look at the 100 opportunities that fit your criteria, you pick one, you sign up, you work for a day, you sign out, and you're done. Right? It could be a one-day assignment, a one-month assignment. But I do think the future of recruitment at large scale is going to go from where we are today. We're very familiar with the gig economy, where people are working not necessarily full-time. But I think very purely contractual short-term gig economy is going to open up as a new avenue for the market. So you're going to have people working for 5 companies in a month. Like that could I think be very doable by companies.
And so that's interesting. So AI might enable, you're saying, that shorter term stints might be more seamless and still effective for the candidate. And it's okay that they wake up one morning and work with a client and help provide service or value.
Yeah.
And then the next day they wake up and maybe help another company. I mean, we're seeing some of that with the Fiverr marketplaces and some of those marketplaces, but it has felt a bit manual. You have to post your gig, right? Search a list of pre-qualified or sponsored profiles, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying some of that might automate sooner than what we say traditional recruitment, which is starting a search, finding the person, going through the interview process.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's all about data and data, as we would like to call it. But the point is, if you start collecting inputs of what projects have people done, and if I, for example, I was a consultant and I said, you know what, today in the last 1 month, I've done a project in this space for this client, and I put it on a platform that it can crunch my information. Tomorrow morning, when a new client wants my kind of skill set, an AI platform will suggest to them, hey, there is a Harris sitting there who has done the exact same work last month. Would you be interested? So they're going to pick me, or they're going to pick 5 people like me and offer the role to one of 5 of us. Whoever goes first gets it. So over time, there's going to be a lot of data out there of consultants having done the kind of work they've done. So there's going to be a lot of explosion of candidates posting the exact work that they have done minus the client they worked for. I mean, that's just future.
I like that too. Just that in theory, that's a curated experience for the candidate. You know, that what I'm seeing and we can unpack this a little bit, but what I'm worried about a lot of AI applications from an employer standpoint is it's really easy to waste a lot of candidates' time who don't even meet the bare minimum of requirements of a job, but they're getting to a second step of an AI screening process, or being asked to do more and more in hopes that they have a better shot at getting this job, versus declining the candidate, saying, hey, focus your time elsewhere, or these are 6 jobs you probably should consider, that you might be better fit for. So yeah, using AI to kind of curate that experience for the job seeker consultant, or help them focus their energy on the right companies or right roles, that they're qualified for.
But this is an evolution, Nick. So right now, we're at early stage of AI. I know there are companies, I heard about FedEx, for example, and they hired a bulk of their talent last year without any human intervention. Phenomenal. The platform that they have built, everyone's trying this out at different, I think every 6 months, you're going to see something big shifting how recruitment is conducted. I think given about 3 years' time, the world we live in at 3 years from now is very different from today. When it comes down to volume hiring,
and I think that's good. A lot of times recruiting and talent acquisition and staffing and RPO and everything gets lumped together in terms of recruiting, and then it's very hard for even folks in the chat rooms to have a cohesive debate or conversation, because executive search might look very different in 3 years than, you're right, the high volume staffing. So I think it's good when we talk about we do give it some context to what types of hiring we're talking about, what types of areas, or even just the nature of the recruiting firm, so because that's a very different outcome. So with that kind of higher context going, so what have you found at Infinity CXC, or where your recruiters are starting to find that balance of, AI maybe helping automate the low-hanging tasks, the tedious stuff, helping with the high-value stuff? Where do you focus your energies internally?
So we have been trying a lot of ideas. I'm personally quite excited of the potential. So this is the first time I can remember in my career that I am lost about what is out there. There was a time when you knew what was out there, and you had to decide if you wanted it. Today, every time I wake up and I search, there are 100 more companies that are offering some kind of a service, right? So for example, the way I've implemented AI or some AI concepts is presentation of the candidate. Right now, Honeit does a great job of helping us with the audio side of it. But what about the actual physical resume? It's about time someone said the resumes are absolutely boring. I get one of the few things, it is so integral to the process, but it's so outdated in the way it sells itself. Right. And because it's become standardized to a point where today everyone's resume looks largely the same. By the way, ChatGPT does the same thing too. I've tried this out. You give 5 different profiles and ask it to create a profile. All the 5 start looking very similar because it has its own way of compartmentalizing different structures of your resume. So we are actually getting to a point of, we're almost, I don't know what to call it, but we're kind of fast fooding the concept of CVs. It's coming in a pre-cooked format, and we know what to expect. And I'm using AI to shift it. Or, you get the resume from a candidate, and you know what the client wants, and you tell AI to do some work that you wanted to do on that candidate profile with your inputs, and create a new cover page. It's a game changer in my view. You could really make it look different. Right. There are multiple tools out there, but for example, a popular one would be Gamma or Canva, and all the others do the same thing. But if you use one of those tools, for example, all you got to do is tweak and give it a little bit of insight of what you want. So that's the piece. What is it that the client wants to understand about a candidate? Is such a simple question, but it's one of the big issues that I think the recruiters do not pay attention to.
And where's that information or insight from the client coming from? I mean, I would ask you, are you using those insights that you capture during your intake calls to then feed the AI to improve the candidate presentation or tie it to the things that the hiring manager told you were important during the intake call? I wasn't sure if you're using Honeit for both your intake calls and your screening calls, because we've been seeing some really interesting applications of that where you take the data from the intake call and use it to tune up the candidate presentations.
Yeah, we could certainly do that. I'm not doing it yet. In fact, we could also use it for prep calls and all that. I've discussed this with my team to use Honeit for it. But where is the data coming from? So yes, intake call is obviously a very important, the first piece of the puzzle. You've got that, but you must have a repository of data points about the company, right? And that comes with time. That's available to me with every client that we have serviced, depending on the length of the engagement. We know what they like. We know to an extent with some clients what kind of questions they like asking. Right? It tells you about the personality of the company. It tells you about what is their culture. And then you have public information out there, right? And with AI, you can actually drill into a lot of useful information. Now you put all these and you triangulate the data points and ask ChatGPT or Perplexity to create a document about the company. It is extremely compelling. Now you take that document and layer it over a resume. You have a whole different document to sell.
So you've got all of the public external, careers website, company website, resources, funding information, all of the external public data, let's say. Yeah. You've got also, you're saying, the debrief call with the candidates who interviewed, and what did they ask you?
Yeah.
And now you're using that to tune out and train and or prep the next candidates and things like that. But again, that's what AI is great at. It's like taking all of the data that you've captured, either private within your organization and or public, and then using that to synthesize insights. I think that's where AI works best, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big difference is, and this is for all the recruitment firms out there, are you capturing the data that is passing through you? Right. If you're capturing it, then how are you polishing it and utilizing it? If you're not, you're wasting a lot of useful data. That is something that I still fight with. Like it's a challenge. How do I get the entire team to start collecting? Everybody wants to go close, right? And I get it, and that's important. But you've got to look at it as a long game, and that's the fun part.
What's maybe we could talk a little about the challenges you're seeing out there today with AI, being helpful to job seekers, auto applies, or any ghosting, any deep fake candidates, any fraudulent activity. We've talked a lot about the positive, and I think there is a lot of positive to say the recruiter and the employer in terms of using or leveraging these tools. I think there's also challenges that we're probably seeing. What are you seeing, or what are your clients seeing out there when AI is everywhere?
Yeah. So yes, there's a lot of negative. I think it's more negative than positive, actually speaking, right? But we're just trying to focus on the positive. But the negative, again, is largely to a segment of the candidate pool who need to put lipstick or put some kind of a color over who they are to make them look better than what they already are. Right. So I've seen it more often with candidates. So we don't generally work with, under 15 years of experience. Most of our candidates are 15, 20 years experience. But when you go to that 5-6 year experienced candidate, you start seeing that they are using AI to create a better looking resume. And therefore the resume sounds good, but they're not real, they're not legitimate. And very often AI will just add things to it. And now a recruiter is scratching their head wondering, I've got 100 resumes and 95 look good. Now, who do I go for? What you're really doing is the whole system is doing a disservice to itself. That's the fundamental problem, I think, right? It's nice to say that AI will do the entire recruitment. Yes, but AI is a human creation, and I see candidates understand the smart ones, right? Now, those who don't understand technology and are applying for jobs that are not technology. They have a different angle to it. But I've seen some of these technology guys, brilliant guys, who are able to use AI for their advantage. But the problem is everyone's doing it. So it still becomes fairly much a zero-sum kind of effort. I don't know the answer to that problem. I think it has to be voice-based. Now I know AI is coming into the voice world, with full force. So that's a scary piece. I don't know how to handle that. I am who I am. I'm real. But in a matter of a year from now, I could have a version of me talking to you and actually having a conversation with you. I've seen those demos. I don't know if you have, Nick. I've seen.
Yeah. There's a lot of tools, catered to like marketing content or tutorial videos where you upload your articles, your support articles, and they'll turn them into interactive training modules and a lot of, content distillation out there, which is quite helpful if you're thinking about how do you train an employee to do something. It could be great for internal training capabilities, but I think all of that technology can be applied to this type of stuff too, right? Around
It's going to trickle down. Let me give an example. I won't take names over here, but there's a good friend of mine. He runs a large CRM company, right? $1 billion CRM company. And everything that he has spoken in all the town halls and meetings are recorded, has been recorded for the last 10 years. So recently, he literally created, or his team created, an avatar of himself that knows everything that he has spoken. And today, you can have a conversation with the avatar version of him, asking him questions like, hey, strategically, which direction should we go? Do you think we should hire him or him? Do you think we should put more dollars in recruitment or in marketing? He's able to analyze and give you the answer based on the last 10 years of conversation and inputs given. That is here and now, and I've seen it. And it is, in fact, he and his avatar talk to each other once. It's a very interesting video.
I think I've seen that with Reid Hoffman, maybe interviewing himself, the founder of LinkedIn. He was, doing one of those as well. But yeah, and again, I think that goes back to companies who are capturing data today or have been capturing data for the last 10 years have a huge advantage in terms of what they can do moving forward with AI. I think it's the recruiting firms or recruiters who are only realizing now that they can be capturing all of the data from their screening calls and their interview conversations and their intake calls, and to then what can they do with that information? If you're just starting now, great. Your data set is just beginning. If you've been doing it and not knowing why for the last 5 to 10 years, well, now there's the why and there's all the use cases. So we see that firsthand. What advice, Harris, would you give to, say, recruiters who are a little newer to the game? I know you've been at this for 14 years, so we've got kind of new recruiters or new talent acquisition partners internally who are looking to level up, stay relevant, keep their jobs, right? Figure out how to use AI to empower them. A lot of times we say there's going to be two types of recruiting companies. There's going to be companies that use AI to automate all the little stuff and then improve human conversations, and there's going to be companies that just choose to use AI to remove human conversations altogether. So any advice you'd give on where maybe mid-level recruiters, folks starting their own firm, can go to upskill, learn, stay relevant?
Sure. So I think the starting point should be, what does the recruiter want to achieve? If the objective is purely monetary, meaning I want to build a business that funds my lifestyle, et cetera, if you're going down that path, then you cannot, then the tuning and the process that they follow are going to be focused on how to maximize the profit side or the revenue side of the house, right? But that is very myopic because technology is going to come your way very, very fast. I have always believed that there is nothing better than building a relationship. Right? The cliche language is your net worth is your network. Right? So if you were, and I've seen that in my entire career, that if you build a good rapport, whenever that might be, it comes back. Number two is recruitment. As much as we call it recruitment or headhunting or various terms, I think it's just an industry of goodwill.
Mm.
End of the day, you're constantly trying to build goodwill with people, be it clients or candidates or even third party. And eventually, there'll be a tipping point when enough of people like you enough that they can trust you for their jobs. So to me, if I were to mentor anyone, I would say the most important piece is empathy. If you're not showing empathy to your candidates or clients, but clients, I'm sure you will, because that's who's got the wallet. But if you're showing empathy to your candidates, you are setting yourself up for greater success over time. Right? And that has to be the biggest thing I've learned over time, that the candidates you treat well will always come back to you. And recruitment is not going to go away. As much as we like to see recruitment and its different forms, I think the way we are structured, the model we have for employment, etc., recruitment is going to be around for the foreseeable future. I don't think that's going to change. The way we recruit might change, the terms might change, the priorities will shift, the questions we ask might change. But if you can build rapport with the people you talk to, in fact, recruitment is one of the few industries, and I find this very fascinating. It's one of the few industries that you can talk to a limitless number of people, and they will talk to you as well. Right? There are very few industries where you can just keep on talking to different people. Right? Even in sales, you're talking to a select client prospect base. Right? In recruitment, nothing stops me from looking at LinkedIn, seeing anyone's name, and reaching out and saying, "I want to talk to you," and everyone's going to say, "Yes, let's talk." But after you talk, what next? So empathy is my biggest learning or biggest advice to anyone. Build it into your process. Even if it's not real, even if it's a little plastic in the way you do it, make sure it's part of the process. Two is people want to make things easier. I think it's human nature to reduce friction and resistance, which sounds normal. But in doing so, I've seen a lot of people using drip campaigns or pre-scripted mail campaigns to reach out to people. I find that really very negative. Right? You are showing a very inhuman side, and you can never get it right. So my advice to a recruitment of someone who's starting a recruitment is don't do that. Take a little bit more time and effort and send an email up front based on what has happened. Today all the marketing agencies are teaching you how to send mails for 7 weeks continuously and how to change the script, and it sounds nice, right? And I also tried it out, but I realized that it really tells the candidate that you're not real, and everyone can see through it, right? A third is there is no substitute to talking. So if you want to pick up a skill, learn to speak better, learn to articulate better, learn to understand the industry better. There is no skill to replace voice. I think the evolution of recruitment is going to be one where the sourcing and a bunch of other roles are all going to be AI driven, but the only part that will remain in your hands is talking.
I love it. On that, Harris, thank you for joining the Honeit Podcast this week, full of great experience, context, insights for the audience. We really appreciate you sharing all of that. Where can folks reach out to you if they want to connect or talk to you about an opportunity or talk about Infinity CXC and using your services?
I'm always happy to talk to people, be you recruiters or anyone else. I would love to build and add to my network. I'm on the phone 8 to 10 hours a day. That's all I do. And if you want to talk, anybody wants to talk to me, but I'm not going to give my number here. You can find me on LinkedIn, Harris Menon. Our website is infinitycxc.com. But I think if you get to LinkedIn, it's the best way to reach out to me, and I'd love to talk to everyone.
Well, thank you, Harris. That's it for today's podcast. Again, Harris, thanks for joining us. Really enjoyed working with you and the team at Infinity CXC, and we'll see you next week.
Lovely.
Thanks, everybody.